Hello, I'm Johnny Mae Leach Gibson.
And I'm Avery Angel Pryor.
And we are the South Carolina Conference Branch Women's Missionary Society Moms Demand Action for Global Sense in America. We are members of the 7th Episcopal District of the AME Church. Welcome to our Orange Table Talk this evening.
An overview of the WMS MDA program. Moms Demand Action, founded by Shannon Watts after the Sandy Hook School Massacre, is a grassroots movement of Americans fighting for safety and protection for people from gun violence. It has volunteer chapters in every state in Washington, D.C. The movement is part of Every Town for Gun Safety, the largest gun violence prevention group in the country. Dr. Taylor King, the Connectional WMS president, through her global focus to embrace child protection, including spiritual, mental, and physical development, enacted the WMS MDA for global gun sense awareness as contributors within the established Moms Demand Action framework. The WMS MDA is purposed to actively enhance, through expanded participation, the remembrance of our beloved Charleston's Emanuel 9. The main focus of WMS MDA is to activate, advocate, and legislate. Every first weekend in June is designated to Wear Orange Weekend by Every Town for Gun Safety. This year starts with National Gun Violence Awareness Day through June 2nd, 2022. At noon on that day, we requested that members of the South Carolina Conference have a moment of silence for everyone whose lives have been affected by gun violence. The On Wear Orange Weekend, June 3rd through 5th, 2022, we invited all to wear orange. In our communities to raise awareness and to plant orange flowers in their home gardens or at their churches, all while posting pictures to our Facebook page at #WCCB WMS Wear Orange.
But we can't stop there, not with all the murders still happening in our state and around the nation. You've read the headlines and heard the news. Buffalo grocery store shooting resembles Emanuel 9 massacre. 21 dead in Uvalde, Texas school shooting, 19 of them children. Mass shooting at Columbia, South Carolina Mall Easter weekend. And just a month later, a young man walks in the mall with a gun and points the gun, and then ends up taking that gun to prison. Mattress store owner killed. Shooting hurt 7 at cocktail lounge. 2 dead in botched robbery. Pair of shooting leaves 4 teens dead in Newberry. 2 found dead at a storage facility in West Ashley. And the most recent, 10 people hospitalized on Memorial Day on the east end of Charleston. It has to stop. It's our duty to continue to advocate for gun sense in America. Today we have with us Mr. Keith Smalls. Mr. Smalls is a violence intervention prevention client advocate at the Medical University of South Carolina. He is also the founder and executive director of My Community's Keeper Mentor Group. He's the co-chair for the Charleston County Criminal Justice Coordinating Council and a community engaged researcher for Everyday Democracy as part of the MacArthur Foundation Safety and Justice Challenge Initiative. He also serves as a victim impact panel speaker and as a certified volunteer juvenile arbitrator for the Ninth Circuit Solicitor's Office Juvenile Diversion Program. He is a frequent speaker on community issues, including gun violence prevention, criminal justice reform, and grassroots community improvement and revitalization projects, with talks at the 28th Annual Thomas A. Pitts Memorial Lectureship and TEDx Charleston 2022. His message comes from a place of deep knowing, which he speaks. After getting arrested at the age of 21, Keith spent 19 of the next 21 years of his life in the Department of Corrections. While serving time, Keith worked in the education building as a librarian and a teacher's assistant. He also mentored youthful offenders. 1 year after release, Mr. Smalls' only son was a casualty of gun violence in North Charleston, Dorchester, Wayland neighborhood at the age of 17. Mr. Smalls, thank you for being here with us this evening.
Thank you for having me. Thank you both.
So, Mr. Smalls, please give us more specifics about your advocacy work with MUSC and your mentor group, and how these programs help victims and survivors.
Well, with MUSC, I work as a client advocate in the Hospital Violence Intervention Program, otherwise known as Turning the Tide. This program is a model that was brought here from the city of San Francisco. It's the first of its kind in the city of Charleston, in the state of South Carolina, and also on the East Coast. The program was designed to combat gun violence. As we know, and the reason we're sitting here, because of the rising toll of gun violence in this city. But this is something that's happening all across America. And to bring the Turning the Tide program, Hospital Violence Intervention Program, I think it was an amazing feat. The program is designed to work with individuals by the ages of 12 to 30. We provide what we call wraparound services for those individuals. The most important part, I think, role is creating a connection in the most vulnerable state, when an individual comes in the hospital, primarily in the trauma bay. And we work with individuals as soon as they come out of the emergency room into the trauma bay. We're right there with that individual, with the gunshot wound, speaking to him, trying to create a connection, because we believe that, that is a very, very vulnerable and an important time. 9 out of 10, maybe not so much so of a statistical accuracy there, but a large portion of the individuals who come through MUSC's Hospital Violence Intervention Program are African American. And also a large portion of the individuals who work on them and serve them are Caucasians. So what we do, we give them somebody who looks like them, right? But we work with them, we get to know them in that situation at that moment, try to figure out who their family are, see how we can connect their family to them in the emergency room. And while they're still in the hospital, we work with them providing trauma resilience services, any services that the hospital may provide. We do our very best, almost as a social worker sense, right? We're connecting them with services while they're in the hospital, working with that patient every day, just about, until his discharge. And that's where our role really takes a defining moment, because in discharge, we work with this individual when he goes home, making sure he has safe discharge, making sure there's no retaliation involved in his situation, making sure there's no recidivism. But we're drawing a map about how we can provide resources to help him get his life back on track. What we have learned in that Hospital Violence Intervention Program, that most of the individuals that we serve, patients-wise, with gunshot wounds, their gunshot wounds are most likely the smallest obstacles that they have to overcome because of their social economical issues. So the wraparound services and being able to show them places that provide services is one of the most important roles that we have, and it serves such great value in these individual lives. me as a mentor and founder and executive director of My Community's Keeper Mentor Group, which is a role that I had before I came to MUSC, and it merges almost perfectly as a marriage. I also have a counterpart who works at MUSC as a client advocate, and he too has a nonprofit organization, Positive Vibes, Roger Nate Smith. And we do similar work when it comes to gun violence, community revitalization, programming for youth. And what we do with the MUSC Hospital Violence Intervention Program, with a lot of the young kids who come through that program, we bring them within our confinements of the organization, My Community's Keeper Mentor Group. My Community's Keeper Mentor Group is a nonprofit 501(c), founded under the principle of to be, becoming, molding, the destination, the journey, the village, a community effort. My Community's Keeper Mentor Group is founded based on the community's effort to revitalize the community. We're a group of educators, a group of mentors, a group of regular citizens coming together with one common cause, to revitalize our community, our minority community, our disenfranchised community, and our high-risk community. So we provide multiple services, whether it's basketball, where we have a basketball after dark program in partnership with North Charleston Police Department and North Charleston Neighborhood Association President. Critical thinking, that we have a partnership with the College of Charleston, where we have critical thinking that's taught in, one of the great, I think one of our best programs is critical thinking. But we also have a financial literacy program that we launched with Pinnacle Financial Partners called Hip Hop Money Smart, which was an idea that we thought that would help to bring some appeal to the youth and teach them about financial literacy. Our marquee programs, our boys program, Boys Will Be Boys, and also a Girls World. But we also have programs in 4 to 5 different schools, a book club at Burns, and just a litany of things that we do at My Community's Keeper Mentor Group. And I think it's important to note that we work really in high-risk neighborhoods with high-risk individuals. I use my position not only as MUSC, but also as a juvenile arbitrator with the solicitor's office to work with juveniles who have committed nonviolent offenses, going into the county jails. I always think that those proximity to the situation and the problems are those better to fix the problems. So for me, it's always about being proximate to the situation, to the problems, to the youth who are going through those situations, and being able to bring them not only through MUSC Hospital Violence Intervention Program, but also to My Community's Keeper Mentor Group.
Wow, thank you so much. I mean, I didn't know that when I first spoke to you that you were doing all of those things. But with your community, My Community's Keeper Group, do you accept volunteers there?
We do. We have a website, mycommunitieskeepermentorgroup.com, mycommunitieskeepermentorgroup.org. We have a gun violence event, and I didn't even speak with October, as you spoke about. My son was murdered October 26, 2016. So every year in October, in the neighborhood where he was murdered, Dorchester, Willing, we have an event, gun violence awareness event called A Day to Be Raw, a day to be remembered, a day to be aware, and a day of wellness, where we have speakers who come out from Moms Demand Action, Tri-County Gun Violence Coordinating Council, MUSC, other gun violence advocacy groups come out and they share information. We remember those who have lost loved ones, and we have gun violence awareness, and we have entertainment, we have food, game truck, and we do that in October, but we always are looking for volunteers to help us with a lot of our community initiatives, but also in the schools.
Okay. Well, listeners, you've heard him mention his websites. If you are willing to volunteer, please check him out and get in contact with him through his websites. Well, Mr. Smalls, we have some other questions. Will you accept some other questions from us? Guns in circulation has gone up. The gun manufacturers keep making assault-style weapons, and more guns are being sold without appropriate credentials. What can we do as a society to put this trend to an end?
I like to talk about the dreadful word. I think because a lot of minorities, African Americans, don't go to the polls, I think the biggest thing that we can do is vote. I don't think they take us serious until we come to the polls and we vote on these issues. Now that's one side of it, right? But I would definitely start there with voting. We have to come out in record numbers to show them that we're serious about this in our community. We're serious about gun violence, gun manufacturers making guns, and the lobbyists who back those guys.
Just recently, South Carolina Moms Demand Action members and other supporters and gun safety advocates like you defeated the permitless carry legislators in South Carolina. which was a huge victory for common sense gun laws in our state. Yet we still have weak gun laws. What can we do as constituents to improve our common sense gun control laws in the state?
Well, I think it's important that, I often say we need more supporters than survivors. I think if more people come out to Moms Demand, organizations like Moms Demand Action, learn about the legislation. One thing I appreciated about Moms Demand Action, and also Tri-County Gun Violence Coordinating Council, which is another organization that I kind of frequent in their meetings. It's important that we learn about some of these legislations, some of these some of these bills that are coming out. Some people have no idea, the significance of some of the bills and how it affect them in their everyday life. And I think it's important that we learn more about these bills, take more notice of the bills that's coming right in front of our face. So attending these meetings, coming to Moms Demand Action meetings, coming to Tri-County Gun Violence Coordinating meetings, joining the gun violence advocacy group where these conversations are being had.
Absolutely, your passion for what you do resonates.
According to Everytown for Gun Safety, in an average year, at least 964 people die by guns in South Carolina, at a rate of 18.9 deaths per every 100,000 people. Our state has the 10th highest rate of gun deaths in the United States. Guns are the leading cause of deaths among children and teens in South Carolina. An average of 92 children and teens die by guns every year, of which 31% of these deaths are suicidal and 59% are homicides. What can we do to protect our children from these shootings, gun suicides, and gun homicides?
I think we have to be intentional and proactive within our community. There's statistics. I want to kind of give some correction to some of the statistics. You can go on the CDC, and hopefully that kind of helps update some of the information. And it's 45,222 firearm deaths since 2000 at a rate of 13.7 per 100. 54% of the firearm deaths were suicide. 43% firearm deaths were homicide. According to the CDC, South Carolina is the outliner for intentional violence. South Carolina has the 5th highest firearm homicide rate in the U.S. The firearm homicide rate has increased 100% in the past 10 years in the state of South Carolina, with 229 deaths in 2010 and 528 in 2020. Manufacturers began to triple their manufacturers in 2020, but we had already reached the historic number. It is important. It is a sense of urgency is obligatory that we take this more serious in our community. This will help. This will prevent. Guns don't kill. People do. If we get to the heart of the matter, the individuals who are toting these guns in the community, if we pay more attention to the gun violence in our community, to the individuals in our community, to the youth, to the families, and the communities that are suffering the most, that are enduring the most pain, that are causing and inflicting the most pain from gun violence, there we will solve a lot of our issues.
Absolutely. That's why it's intentional for you to be doing what you're doing in this field of work. What do we do, or what do we need to do as a community organization to help prevent massacres, like the most recent school shooting? And I heard you say it. You said that we have to be in our community more. We have to be intentional about what we're trying to do to prevent these mass shootings. But as an individual that runs his own nonprofit and works at MUSC, and you kind of have the forefront of what is happening, what can we do as a community?
Well, I mean, it's a community, but then there's the individual, right? Within each home, we have to parent better. There's a lot hinged on parents. Whatever name or title we give them, they haven't, the finger hasn't been pointed at parents enough. I think, there should be a finger pointed to parenting and how we allow our kids, to tote guns. How we, change the dynamic in this relationship. You're not my friend, you're a child. I think a lot of situations that we find ourselves into can be prevented. As I said, guns don't kill, people kill. And these people are raised, being born in homes. The greatest sufferance of mankind is learned behavior. Everything they get, they've learned someplace. Whether it's directly in the home or indirectly in the home, but it's important, I think, as an organization, but as a community, that we take we take a better look. We talk about the village, and as I say in our motto is to be becoming molded, the destination of the journey, the village, the community effort. The community effort is a holistic approach, but on the individual approach, one home at a time. We have to be more serious, more intentional, more determined about gun violence. Learning our kids, knowing who our kids are. 9 out of 10 of these mass shootings are premeditated. The kids have left signs.
Absolutely.
If parents pay attention enough, a little more. Not say enough, let's say a little more. And I don't want to insult parents, but if that's the case, I'm a father who lost a son to gun violence. And I don't mind insulting a parent. I need more supporters than I need survivors. And that's, I think, where we get a lot of the work done. If we get more supporters of gun violence than survivors of gun violence.
And I agree with you. But as we look at that, is it possible that how can we focus on helping our parents more? If parents can't be there for their children, how can that village come in to help that parent? Because sometimes parents they've gone through those same things that their children. It's like a continuous or a repeat of a generational trauma, those words. And so how can the village come in to help that parent?
And I believe that's one of the hardest factors, because there's a factor in that, right? And it's one of the hardest things that we have up against us. As a mentor, my community's keep a mentor. We need parental consent, but we also encourage parental engagement. We need the parent engaged in the process of mentoring. But I do think, to be able to convince a parent that she needs help, I don't think there's a right or wrong answer to that. But that is, I think, the secret recipe. You know what I mean? There's the soft spot. If we can get to that soft spot, because every individual situation is different. Everybody has different trauma and different reasons why they won't welcome a mentor in their home, why they won't welcome the neighbor in their home. I think, we can get to the bottom of that. I think we answer a lot of our questions and we get back on the right track. But I think we still have to not live up. We have to give up on our people. In fact, we have to do the opposite. We have to give more. We can't give up, we have to give more. So if it's more support, if it's more encouragement, it's more prayer, it's more hands, it's more feet, but we have to give in instead of giving up on our people.
Yes. Of the individuals, the victims that you've helped, have they all kind of like gone on the straight and narrow path? Or I hope they haven't backslid?
I mean, that's a great question, because until someone who was previously incarcerated, serving, as I say, excessive 19 years, I never heard the word recidivism until, I never heard recidivism used in a hospital stand until I met, a guy who had been shot 4 times. Then I met another guy who had been shot 6 times. And just to answer that question, we recently evaluated the program and realized that we had seen over 325 gunshot wounds in MUSC in this one calendar year, from June to June. And out of the 325, only one was white, unfortunately. But of the ones we have signed up, I've signed up over 50 kids, and none of them have recidivized. None of them ever came back. In fact, we just recently was on the cover of the Post and Courier with one of our kids who was shot in the head by his stepfather. And now he wanted to become a fireman before he got shot. Now he's a fireman. So he had a full recovery. So far we've been blessed. And we hope to continue to be that way.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much for spending the evening with us during our Orange Table Talk. And thank you for all of the advocacy work that you're doing with your My Communities Keeper Mentor Group and with the MUSC's Turning the Tide Intervention Group. Thank you so much again. Thank you, everyone, for listening to our table talk this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us for our South Carolina Conference Branch Women's Missionary Society Orange Table Talk. This has been a very insightful and enlightening discussion, but let us not stop here. There's more than we can do. There's more that we must do. We're so very grateful to be in the edifice of Mother Emanuel AME Church. I would like to thank Mr. Keith Smalls. I would like to also thank our MDA commissioners, Sister Johnny Gibson and Sister Angel Pryor. Not only did they share with us today, but there's a resource that you will get which actually highlights a lot of the resources that MUSC offers, and also additional community resources that Mr. Smalls will provide to us. As we end this segment today, you will hear Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound. When we cannot figure out what's going on in this life, think about those 3 Hebrew boys, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, when they were in the fiery furnace. Remember, there was a 4th man in the fire, and that 4th man is Jesus Christ. As we embrace this weekend of gun violence awareness, let us pray. Not only pray, let's get up and let us vote as we've never voted before. May the Lord God continue to bless you real good, and let us continue to pray for all of the victims and the survivors of gun violence. And let us also remember the Mother Emanuel family and all of the victims and survivors. Let us all also remember God is a very present help.